Welcome to our Behind the Mic with MAB podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Fontaine. Join me as I chat with vibrant radio hosts, intriguing television personalities, and the brilliant minds behind TV and radio stations in our broadcast community. Today, I am with WDAM's Chief Meteorologist, Mr. Patrick Bigbie. Patrick's passion for weather started really early. Watching the Weather Channel instead of cartoons and becoming the youngest weather watcher for WSFA at just 13 years old. From there, he built a career rooted in relentless curiosity, real-world storm chasing, can't wait to hear about that, and a commitment in keeping communities safe when it matters most. He shares the story behind the now famous moment during the 2017 Pine Belt tornado when he held up a handwritten sign on live TV after losing audio to warn the viewers of immediate danger. It's a powerful example of quick thinking under pressure and the responsibility that comes with being the voice people trust in critical moments. So today we'll talk about what it takes to become a chief meteorologist, the reality of chasing severe weather from tornadoes to hurricanes, lessons learned from high-stakes live broadcasting, his journey through the University of South Alabama and early career growth, and recognition in the industry, including Emmy nomination, and he's received multiple of our MAB awards. That we just discussed. That event is coming up very soon on April 11th. I will be seeing him again there. And then life outside the studio, from Auburn football to photography and family. So, Patrick, we have a lot to talk about today. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, you're very welcome. I'm so glad you invited me to come and join you.
And you have a beautiful day to drive from Hattiesburg to Jackson.
Yes, this was a beautiful day. I know we were trying to do this a couple of weeks ago, and the date we had scheduled, we had severe weather, and of course I could not break away from that, so we had to reschedule. But everything turned out fine. It all turned out good in the end. The weather's been gorgeous except for the pollen. I'm gonna tell you, the pollen has been killing me for the last couple of weeks.
That pollen has been quite an issue.
Yes.
So when does that end exactly?
So usually our springtime pollen usually begins around February, but it really hits heavy March, early April. By the middle part of April, it starts to really wind down.
I'm already ready for it to wind down. But I'm so ready for spring. Spring is my favorite, when the flowers start blooming and everything's green again and so pretty. And the time changes and we have more daylight. Like, I just love it.
So you're a spring type of person.
I am.
Awesome.
Are you a winter kind of person?
I would say I'm more of a fall type of person. You get the football, you get the cooler weather, because the only sad thing about spring is it's really pretty, but you know that the 1 billion degree humidity, the 1 billion degree temperatures and humidity that's through the roof comes roaring back in. That's one of the prices you pay for living in the South, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So you mentioned football.
Yes.
So I know you went to University of South Alabama.
Right.
But you're an Auburn fan?
Yes. So I was born and raised in a place called Phoenix City, Alabama. It's right there on the Georgia line, and it is about 25 minutes away from Auburn. So, of course, when you are born into the state of Alabama, the first thing they do is when they get out your birth certificate, you have to pledge allegiance to either the University of Alabama or Auburn. And because we are so close to Auburn, and because that is the correct team to choose, I'm an Auburn fan.
I love it. So I'm sure some people are disagreeing with that.
Right. There
now.
are probably a lot of people disagreeing, but that is the reason why. And when I moved here to Mississippi, a lot of people are like, if you're from Alabama, why are you a Bama fan? I was like, because there's more than one school.
So do you still go back to ball games?
I do every once in a while. I haven't made it back in a couple of years, but it is fun to go through there, and all the time. So I'm always excited to go into Auburn and to cheer on the team.
That's awesome. Okay, I have to tell you that I absolutely loved your bio. When I started reading it, I was like, that is so cool. So you have known for quite some time what you are going to do as a career.
Yes. And it's really funny because to me, everybody has their weather story. So if you go ask meteorologists, it's usually either they're born with it or there was some storm they went to that sparked a love. And for me, I was I was kind of born with it. I've loved weather since I was a kid. My parents noticed when I was 2 or 3, I would watch the TV when the weather would come on. And then as I got older, I mean, I would watch Cartoon Network, but the Weather Channel. If there was something going on, it was always on the Weather Channel. My parents have pictures somewhere of me playing with like my Legos and Hot Wheels, and the Weather Channel's on in the background. So it's always been there. That love has always been there. As I grew up, I kind of went through a phase where I wanted to be like a state trooper, I wanted to be a train engineer, but I always came back to weather at the end, and here I am all those years later.
What did it mean to be a weather watcher?
Yeah, so I was a weather watcher for WSFA in Montgomery. So what that title meant was I had a rain gauge at my house, and whenever it rained or if we had some significant weather event, I would call them and tell them how much rain we had. And this give you a background idea. This is way back in like 2002, 2003 when this is. So it wasn't really a big time of doing stuff on the internet. So you would call them, leave a message, and then they would post it during their newscast. So it would be like, let's check in on our weather watchers for today. Patrick over in Seal picked up, a half an inch of rain. Meanwhile, so and so in Dothan picked up this amount. And so it was kind of that community involvement for them. And I got to from doing that, I got to really learn a lot from the business. I became really good friends with the chief meteorologist at the time, Rich Thomas at WSFA. And he would just allow me to come shadow him. I could just be like, "Hey, do you have a day available?" And usually my parents would drive me to Montgomery because it was over an hour. And I would just sit there and shadow him for the afternoon. And as a 13, 14-year-old kid, that was the coolest thing ever.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what a cool mentorship.
Right?
Yeah, at the age of 13.
So because of that, um, what's really wild is WSFA is in our parent group, of course, Gray Media. And from shadowing with him, I was able to get a year-long internship in 2011 at WSFA. I've known, a lot of the meteorologists who have come and gone through the station. A lot of them now are at different areas, but they still have, uh, always been mentors to me. Such as Ryan Vaughn at KAIT in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Of course, Josh Johnson is now the chief meteorologist at WSFA in Montgomery. Derek Kincaid at WTVM in Columbus, Georgia. So all of these people have really helped to, mold me into who I am and to make me the meteorologist I am today.
That is such a cool story. We were talking about internships
Hmm.
yesterday at our MAB day on campus, and we do those kind of throughout the state at different colleges and universities. But we always talk to the students about how important it is
Yes.
that internships can really make or break you.
It really can. And, I've seen interns, the news interns that'll come into our station sometimes. And so you can tell, um, there are some who just, you can watch them and they're going to be somebody. And then there are some, and it's just like, please don't make this mistake. Please don't make this mistake. We, it is so important that when you intern, ask all the right questions, learn as much as you can because you never know. I mean, I did not know that I would know all these people. Here I am. So that was in 2011, it's 2026. So all those years later, uh, how they are beneficial to me. And, I've had instances where I've been like, "Hey, Josh, I have a question. So and so, I need your help." Or Ryan Vaughn, or it never hurts because you never know where those people will be one day.
That is so very true. So when you were an intern, like, are there any special memories that stick out in your mind from that?
So the biggest thing to me, I think, is there was a severe weather event. It was on March 2nd, 2012, and the weather really more impacted the Tennessee Valley and over towards the Ohio Valley, but Alabama was hit with a couple of tornadoes, including a long track tornado that went from, I think it was from west of Clanton to over towards Lake Martin. And the coolest thing I think that day, and that was the memory that stuck out to me, was I got to sit in the weather center as they were wall to wall and help out. Um, the funniest part to me was the news director at the time was like, "Hey, he is not being paid. He does not need to be on camera." So it was like I had to hide, but every once in a while there was like, "Oh, there's my head," "Oh, there's my ear. You can see me just a little bit back there."
And how old were you at this time?
So I was about 21 at the time.
So you kind of went through high
Hmm.
school, obviously, kind of had your mentor at the
Hmm.
station, everything. So then you obviously knew, hey, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to be a
Right.
meteorologist, right? There was
Right.
never any doubt about that.
Yeah. So by the time I was in high school, so basically, so I was homeschooled for the second half. After fourth grade, I was homeschooled. So what was funny is when we had bad weather, my mom knew there was no point of even attempting to try to do school that day because I was going to be watching the weather on the computer and on the TV. And I used to make my own severe weather reports, like break-ins with our parents' video camera at the time. And so I had, and to give you an idea of how far back this is a VCR tape. You had to buy VCR tape to put in there. And I would make my own coverage of like hurricanes or tornado warnings or stuff like that. I would do that as we went along. So, I always wanted to do this. And I think the coolest moment was the first time I did a tornado warning when I started work at WSFA, not WDAM in 2015. It was like a full circle moment. It was like, this is the moment I always thought would be the coolest, and here I am.
Do you still have those tapes?
I do. They're at my parents' house, but I do still have those tapes, and I even converted over a couple to DVD. So
Love it. So then you went to University of South Alabama,
right.
got your degree.
Hmm.
And where did you? Okay, well, first of all, let's talk about that.
Yes.
So, getting a degree in meteorology, is that difficult per se? Do you have to take some really hard classes?
Yes, it is. If you love math and science, then weather is the place for you. So to give you an idea, I had to take calculus 1 through 3. I had to take differential equations. I had to take calculus based physics 1 and 2. Um, and there is so much math involved that I am one course shy of having a math minor.
Oh, Patrick, I had no idea.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
so interesting.
So there's a lot that goes into it. And what's wild to me is that we think in math just counting money, you got numbers, and then you go into like you go into pre-cal and algebra and trig, and there's letters, and you go into calculus, and then there's Greek letters, and then it's just like, oh my gosh, when will this stop? But the funniest part to me is that because I'm a broadcaster, I don't use that at any point during the day. But if something were to break down, I at least have the knowledge to know how to fix stuff like with modeling or equations or stuff like that.
Well, I was about to ask you. So,
Hmm.
why do you need calculus? What is the purpose behind that?
So the purpose behind that is because uh, you know the language of science is math, and um, in weather, there are a lot of equations to figure stuff out. and like some of them, like I took a test one time in radar meteorology. The math problem was 2 pages long. It took me two pages front and back to solve the problem. Um, and if you go into research or if you do stuff with the Weather Service, they have little research projects that they do. You have to have that math background to understand everything.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Wow. So you left South Alabama
Yes.
and went to where?
So I left South Alabama and I got my first job at WDAM in Hattiesburg. And the funny thing is, did not plan on staying, but I fell in love with Hattiesburg. And here I am 10 and a half years later, uh, now as their chief meteorologist. And I went through everything. So when I first started, I was the weekend meteorologist. So basically, you only saw me on TV Saturday and Sunday, but Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I was doing other stuff behind the scenes. I've also been a meteorologist slash reporter at times. And then in 2018, I became the morning meteorologist. And that was the beginning of the fun journey of waking up at 2 a.m. every morning. And a lot of people are always like, oh, you're a morning person. It's just the perfect schedule. But for a night owl, it was hard for me to get sleepy at 8 p.m. and to go to bed at 8 p.m. Because a lot of times there would be like nights I'd be like, oh, I'm just stay up till 2 a.m. because I'm a night owl. And now it's like I gotta be up at 2 a.m. to be at work by 3:30. And I'm gonna tell you, mornings are rough, but eventually you get used to it, but it's still rough. Is anybody who if you ask any broadcaster in the business, about mornings, if they've done them, it's not as easy as you.
It would be awful.
Yes.
So you were morning. Okay, let me ask you one quick question,
Okay.
and then we're going to progress. So, what happened if you were the weekend meteorologist and you knew there was going to be really bad weather? Did you have assistants?
So our chief at the time, if we had bad weather on the weekends, he would come in and assist me in wall to wall coverage. So, if we break into programming, that's what it's called. It's wall to wall, and he would assist me and help, do everything. So basically, it was a tag team effort.
Gotcha. Okay, so so you were that really wee hours of the morning
Hmm.
thing, and then what happened after that?
So in 2021, our chief left, and I applied to become chief after working mornings for almost 4 years, and I got the job. Um, and what is funny to me is that I always wanted to be a chief meteorologist as a kid growing up, and it was surreal to finally get the day when my news director goes, "You're it." And, it was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure? Am I dreaming this? Like, is this really happening?" And she was like, "No, you're our chief now."
What does it mean exactly to be a chief meteorologist for those that are listening?
Alright, so for a chief meteorologist, the biggest thing is that I'm the head of the weather department. So, um, I make schedules, I assist others. We just hired our fourth meteorologist, so a big thing I have to do is train him uh straight out of college on our system and to make sure he's ready. And that way when he gets on air, he's not, rusty or, nervous. So I assist in training, our new people coming in. One thing that a lot of people don't realize as a chief meteorologist is that when there is severe weather, I'm going to have to come in. And it is a lot of a sacrifice to do that sometimes. I have had in years past where we'll just get into this weird pattern of severe weather during the weekend. Severe weather during the weekend. And you'll work like 6 days because you have to come in. You can't just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna leave it to them." No, we are a team. That's why it's called the weather team. So I have to come in and pull my own weight and help those around me as well.
You mentioned the wall to wall
Right.
coverage. Woo, do you ever get tired of talking?
Yes. You and there is an art to it because basically uh it is almost like you're telling a story and you sometimes just don't know when that story is going to end. It may be I may be wrapping up in 5 minutes. I may be on air for the next 5 hours. You don't know. But there is kind of an art to talking for all those hours, and a lot of times it will be I will toss to like Riley or Rex or to Evan, who are our meteorologists, be like, "Hey, what are you seeing on the radar screen?" And they'll start talking. And a lot of people don't realize is that usually in those moments, that's when I walk away to go get some water or to go eat a granola bar real fast because we've been on air for 4 hours and I haven't had anything to eat since the morning. So, um, a lot of times those little moments where it's like, "Hey, are you seeing anything new on your side?" And it's like, "Quickly, go get something to drink," and be ready to go. Um, and again, there are times like, of course, last year with the severe weather outbreak on March 15th, and of course the tornadoes that hit Tylertown, that awful day. I got up at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning and went to work and did not get home until 10 p.m. or excuse me, 11 p.m. that night because I had to stay and do the 10 o'clock news because of the awful events that had happened. So, um, there's a lot of sacrifice that you have to go into. Obviously, my wife she understands it, but I mean, there are a lot of people who want a 9 to 5 job and that be it. Unfortunately, I don't think weather or broadcasting is for you because, tornadoes don't wait for a schedule, and if you're in the news department, breaking news isn't convenient at normal daytime hours. There you have to kind of go with the flow.
And people kind of take that for granted. I was
Yes.
at one station recently and the weather was about to be bad, and they were actually looking for an air mattress.
Hmm.
So I'm quite certain you've probably spent the night in the station a few times.
I have spent the night at the TV station, I think 3 or 4 times now. I've done it during an two or three times during ice storms. The last time I had to stay at the station was during the ice storm of or during the winter storm that hit in January of 24 when it snowed everywhere and Biloxi got all that snow down there. In Hattiesburg, the roads were fine, but just south of Hattiesburg, the roads iced over, and that's where I live. So I could not go home. So I had to sleep in our conference room. But I've also had to sleep up there during hurricane coverage. I've done that during 2 hurricanes.
And I bet you didn't get very much sleep.
No, you don't. And you know, it's also weird to go to bed in like a boardroom or somebody's office. I bring my fan because if I don't, the southerner in me is like, I need that fan noise. I need that fan. So, but I'm sitting there, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna try to go to sleep. Please let me go to sleep. Please let me go to sleep, brain. Eventually you do, but it's like, this is not home. This is not my bed. It's almost like sleeping at a hotel, but less luxurious.
Yeah, it would be hard. I
Yeah.
even have a hard time, like the first night that I'm at a hotel.
Uh-huh.
I'm usually like wide awake. Okay. It's so hard to go to sleep.
Yes.
And then the next night, I'm just so tired that I finally go to sleep.
Yeah.
So I get it. But that's a hotel compared to a conference room or an
Right.
office, which would be 10 times worse.
Yes.
Definitely. Well, kind of in your intro, I
Uh-huh.
love the story. Why were you holding up a sign on TV? What happened?
Okay, so that happened. To go back, so January 21st, 2017, we had a severe weather event during the early morning hours that came through Hattiesburg. Had an EF3 tornado that started on the southwest side of Hattiesburg and rural Lamar County. It went through Hattiesburg, it hit William Carey University, and then it went through city of Petal. before lifting. And all of this is happening at 4 a.m.
Were you already there?
Yes. So the wilds, the backstory is our chief meteorologist at the time was not there. He was at a meteorological conference that was going on. And so basically, it was me and our morning met. We were left at the helm. And so I came to work that day at 2 p.m. I knew we were going to have overnight severe weather. So I slept as late as I could and then went home for dinner and then came back, did the 10 o'clock news. And then you sit there, as what we call babysitting in the industry. So basically, you sit there and wait and babysit the storms. If something happens, you're there and then you break in. So after waiting, at 1 to 2 in the morning, nothing has happened. We're having storms, but no warnings are being issued just yet. We're under a watch. Um, and and then at 3 o'clock, they issued the first tornado warning. So we go on air at 3 o'clock, and by 4 a.m., the tornado has developed and it's moving through the city of Hattiesburg. Um, and then as it's going through the city of Hattiesburg, it's disrupting the power grid. So we're starting to have brownouts here at the TV station, which is north of town. And then we started taking lightning strikes on our tower at the same time. So literally we were up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, when those lightning strikes started happening. And then finally we took another lightning strike and the surge protector hooked up to our audio board gave its life, and but it was at the worst time ever. So our audio board was saved, but it no longer had power. So at the time when I needed to be telling people there's a tornado on the ground, the audio board is dead. So our engineer team who was there ran in there, you know, and plugged in the audio board to the wall, but he had to reboot it because it is electronic, and so that took a couple of minutes. But in that matter of time, the tornado was on the ground and pedal, and so it literally became, "What do I do?" And I remember some of what James Spann has said, from the 2011 tornado outbreak, is that people want to see your face. They want, they're taking social cues, whether they know it or not, from your reactions. And so I was sitting there, I was like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Do I do a ticker? What do I do? And I finally just said, all right, I got an idea. And ran over to the trash can behind the news desk, which had the news scripts in it. And after every newscast, they just put them in there and we would recycle them. And I grabbed one of those scripts and I flipped it over on the back and I grabbed a Sharpie and I wrote no sound and I held it up to the camera. And then I wrote tornado on the ground and pedal, take cover now. And then I held that up so people could see, you know, we were still there. You just could not hear me. And I was preparing to ride out for however how long I had to and just hold up the sign and ride it out and do it again. Luckily, we got it up and we were able to continue on. But that moment is the moment that I guess my career, you know, it really became the most important thing I've ever done. And what is so wild is I wasn't even sure if we were still in the air at the time because we were up and down. And I was like, "You know what? Nobody saw that. I'm pretty sure of it." And by the time we got through with our coverage at 7:30 that morning, I had friends from Pennsylvania, from North Mississippi. They screenshotted that and sent it to me. And it was so wild to me. It was like, how did Jeff in Pennsylvania see this and send this to me? It's 4 a.m. in Hattiesburg. Nobody is up. But everybody was watching that moment. And the you know, you never know when your moment is going to be. That was the thing I discovered that day, is you never know when your moment will be. Um, because there's sometimes just you don't there's no announcement of this is gonna be it. This is gonna be your defining moment. And that was it. And um, the Weather Channel found out about it, so I was interviewed by the Weather Channel for an online article. Uh, University of South Alabama found out about it, and so the alumni magazine called me and did an interview with me, and it was posted there. I was given an award by the Petal Chamber of Commerce from the First Responders Association, thanking me uh, for everything that I did that day. And the the biggest thing I still think to this day, even all these years later, is that so many people come up and they'll be like, "You were the last thing I saw," and then my power went out, and then the tornado hit, and I lost my house, but we were safe because of you. And looking and having people tell me those stories, it feels like in a movie It's a Wonderful Life when George is like, "I wish I'd never been born," and everything gets changed and like his brother, because he didn't save his brother from falling into the ice. His brother didn't save everybody from the uh from drowning on that transport when it went down in the war. And it's like your life really has an impact on so many other people's lives. You don't realize it, but there will be a time when something will happen, and that was my something.
That was a big
It
something.
was.
And what quick thinking on your part.
Yeah, it did not feel quick at the time. It felt like eternity. It was probably only about 45 seconds, 90 seconds at the most, but it felt like an eternity. And behind the scenes, um, our digital person at the time came in and she was screaming. She goes, "We're down. It's on the ground. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?" And I remember I was like, she was panicking so much, and I was like, "I can't think. What am I gonna do?" And I finally was like, "Be quiet." I yelled, I was like, "Be quiet. I can't think." And then I sat there for a second. I was like, "All right, I have an idea." And I ran to grab the paper, and that's when it started. But it was it's just the moment I did not wake up that morning and think that I'm going to save so many lives or change lives. That just did not cross my mind. And it's also a weird thing too, because 4 people died in that tornado. And as a meteorologist, at first, you have that guilt of I could not save them. And I actually went to therapy over that because, it was that 4 people died. What could I have done better? And the one thing that my therapist told me is she goes, "You're looking at it wrong. Sometimes it is people's time, but look at all the people you saved that night." And that was the thing that really got me through it. It was like, okay, I can't save everybody, but I did the best I could.
And you can't help it if they're not watching you or
Right.
listening to you. And as a
Right.
result of that, that's what happened.
Right. It's 4 a.m. Some people died in their bed. And, I can't wake up everybody, but we're at least doing everything we can.
But it says so much that thought even occurred in your brain
Mm-hmm.
and that it means that much to you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can just see the passion for what you do in your eyes as you're sitting here
Yeah.
telling me all this and just how impactful. And people like really don't get sometimes, I don't think, the power of our local stations.
Right.
Local is so important because if they were listening to some random channel, they're definitely not going to hear you
Mm-hmm.
say, "Take cover. This is what's going on right now."
And I mean, that night, a lot of the national media, the weather media, they wrap up their coverage at midnight, and that's it. If you're watching them, you're watching a rerun of like Ice Road Truckers or something like that. Here we are at 4 a.m. Everybody is sleep deprived. Everybody's tired. Um, and we are doing everything we can to keep you safe. Literally, we are doing everything, including writing out a piece of paper.
Do you have good handwriting?
Um, I I don't necessarily think I do, but I have prettier handwriting than most. Um, but it was also a struggle of this needs to be legible, but I also need to write fast.
Hurry. Yeah.
Because if I write slow, I can make it as pretty as as anything. But it was like, hurry. So I was like, writing and writing big too. So it was legible. It was legible to say the least.
I don't think there are any stories that are going to beat that one, But are there any other, like, weather situations that stand out?
Um, I've had times where I've had to tell my wife to take cover. We've had
Ooh.
rotations go over my house or my apartment at the time. Now I have a house. And a lot of people always think it's really funny or cool when I'll be like, "All right, Rachel, you need to go get the dogs, go get in the bathtub." And then eventually I'll give her, and then I'll text her after I do that. I'll be like, "Are you in the place?" And she'll text me back, "Yes." And that's all I need. So I can feel better. And it takes my mind off of it. It's like, okay, well, if I know she's in her spot, I can continue on. And then after it passes, you get this wave of like, all right, it's relief. But for me it is, but for everybody else, they're still going through it. And um, I'll tell my wife, I'll be like, all right, you can get out of the bathtub now, and everybody will be like, we know it's getting bad when you tell your wife to get in the bathtub.
Exactly. That would be so
Yes,
difficult to be at the station and not be able to be there with her and know that it's about to go for your house.
yes. Uh, and I joke with people when I bought my first house, I was like, I got skin in the game now, and now it's like the most terrifying thing. I'm like, ugh. And as a meteorologist, a lot of meteorologists love severe weather. Uh, it's a weird obsession because things that are so deadly and destructive can be so beautiful, like tornadoes and hurricanes, because you just get so enraptured in the science. And a lot of times, we won't say it secretly, but a lot of people be like, I can't wait. And for me, now that I've been there for 10 years, uh, my love for it has really waned because not only have I seen the death and destruction it can hold, it's like, all right, now I'm married. Now I have a house. Now I really do have skin in the game. If something happens, my life could be changed too. Uh, I kind of dread it now, but I still love being there for the people. Um, and I think a lot of people have to realize is like for us, uh, I think James Spann said it best. You have to have a servant's heart to do what we do because do I want to get up and go to work on a Saturday? No. Do I want to get woke up at 3 a.m. to come into work for a tornado warning and then turn around and work my normal shift at 2 p.m.? No, but I'm going to do it because that is my job and I owe it to the people of our viewing area to be there for them.
And you truly do have a servant's heart.
Right.
That's so true. So, do you ever still go chasing storms? You were a storm chaser at one time, right?
So in college, I was a storm chaser. I would go storm chase. I don't do it much anymore, especially with us. When that is my job now. So I'm at the TV station a lot of times. But I have gone storm chasing when I was in college. The funny part about it is I have every time I would win, nothing would happen, or we would pick the wrong storm, and that storm wouldn't do anything. But the storm to our north that we should have picked, it produced the tornado. So, one time in 2009, me and all my friends from the meteorology department, we saved our class skips and we used one of them for a severe weather day. And we drove up to North Alabama to chase tornadoes. And then we got stuck in traffic in Tuscaloosa. This was before 2011. So it was it was like a normal regular tornado touchdown in North Tuscaloosa County, but we got stuck in traffic and we missed it because we couldn't get out of traffic. Um, and that day was funny because we made all that attempt. We drove from Mobile to Meridian, and we got on 5920 to Tuscaloosa. We didn't see anything. Then there was another round of storms coming behind it, so we drove from Tuscaloosa to Columbus, Mississippi, and then drove up to Amory to catch the squall line. Nothing happened, but it was like all day of driving. We saw a couple of cool things, and then you got to drive back to Mobile.
Wow. That would be a lot.
Yeah. That's really a lot. The one thing you don't see with storm chasers, there's a lot of driving. There's a lot of waiting. And sometimes you got to be in place and then wait for the storms to come for tea. And then one night we drove from Mobile to Montgomery, and then we drove to Meridian on Highway 80, and then we drove back to Montgomery, and then we drove to the other side of Alabama to Phoenix City, and we didn't see anything. But Birmingham saw severe weather that day, and we were like, do we go to East Alabama? Do we go to North Alabama? What do we do? And it was like, well, the storm's over in East Alabama. It looks stronger now. Let's go there. They didn't do anything.
And you missed it.
And we missed it.
But maybe it's a good thing you missed it because you're still
right
here with us today and able to
yes.
be the chief meteorologist.
Yes.
Because I have heard of people that had really scary stories during the storm chasing moments. I had a tennis coach, interestingly enough, that was a storm chaser.
Oh, really?
And he'd be like, hey, I know that y'all are, playing in the finals tomorrow night and all, but I'm so sorry I'm not going to be there. I mean, he was like obsessed about it. It was like in Texas, it's not in Mississippi, but in Texas, there's going to be bad weather. And so we are leaving tonight, headed that way.
Yeah, it's like an adrenaline rush. It really is. When you storm chase, it's kind of like being, working on TV. There are moments where you're like a firefighter, where you have hours of boredom, hours of driving somewhere to be in position to wait, followed by 5 minutes of excitement when the action happens. And then you're back to hours of boredom. And that's kind of how storm chasing is. Drive, you wait, you sit there and wait. All right, it's here. All right, this storm's not doing nothing. All right, let's go to the other storm and see if we can get there in time to catch it. I never had any luck, but I had friends that we used to go chase all the time. Every time he went and chase, he saw something.
That does not sound fun to me. So we've talked a lot about storms.
Yes.
Let's talk about like regular day-to-day weather. Like, is it going to rain? Is this? How do you actually determine that? Like, how do you come up with the forecast?
So what I do every day is I come into work and we start off with the newsroom editorial meeting, and I start things off that way. And so I go in there, and that's where all the reporters say what their story is, how it's coming along, and I give the weather report. Then I actually go in and do the forecast, and I look at about 3 or 4 different weather models. I look at data from the National Weather Service, and it just depends. If it's a quiet pattern like we're stuck in now, it'll take me 10, 15 minutes. If it's an action-packed and we're probably going to have tornadoes in a day or two, I'm going to be looking at it for probably, I'm looking at a lot of different things for about an hour. And then after I look at all that data, we still write it down on a piece of paper, and then I do data entry into our weather system, and we go from there. But there's a lot of looking at little things, what is this model saying? What is this model saying? Where do they think the best opportunity for rain or severe weather is going to be? And I would say a lot of times, severe weather is easier to forecast, even though I'm spending more time on it, because it's either going to happen or it's not. Whereas like in the summertime, there's going to be a 20% chance of rain, but I don't know who's going to see it. So, I have to, you spend a little bit more time on those uncertain days than you do the certain day.
Have you ever done the forecast and been like, oh, I really got that wrong? I messed up a little bit.
There have been days where, like, the science says it should rain. Everything says it should rain. And then it doesn't. And the old saying, tell God your plans and watch him laugh. And that's kind of how it is sometimes when you forecast. It's supposed to rain, but it did not. And weather is still it's not a certain science. It's not guaranteed. I think a lot of people think that when I say something, it is the gospel, but there are some days where it's just like, there's no guarantee. I'm doing the best I can with what information I have.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. There's also been days where storms, I remember there was one morning and I did the forecast. We were supposed to hit a high of 90, and we had a few showers that morning, and they were supposed to get out here by 8 o'clock, and they did not. Flash flood warnings. It was still raining at 12 o'clock. I think our high that day was 75. But if that storm hadn't stayed in Hattiesburg for 6 extra hours, it would have been 90. But none of the models showed that that was going to happen. So, you got to, the best data that I have still, we're still a long way from being 100% perfect in the weather world.
No, that makes perfect sense. It would be so intriguing. It would be like solving a puzzle sometimes.
Yes.
What about, I think it would be very interesting. Do you get all into the like noodle models and stuff for hurricanes?
Yes. So we do a lot of the spaghetti models with hurricanes. Uh, I always joke that hurricanes are like you're being stalked by a turtle because they're so large and it's like days of lead up until it finally happens. But every time the new models come in, it's like, all right, where's the spaghettis going now? Did they change? Or are they still the same? And sometimes with those more intense hurricanes or, those little small minute changes, 2 days out can make a big difference. See, we had one time, I think it was Hurricane Helene, 2004, the one that hit North Carolina, Tennessee. Uh, you know, some of the early runs were showing it may come towards Louisiana and make landfall, possibly on the Mississippi coast. And that was before it formed. So after it became a depression, the models really locked down and took it to Florida, and that's where it stayed, and that's where it ultimately made landfall. But you have those instances where it's like, is this coming here? It is. It's like being stalked by a turtle because then you get the data, and then you got to wait another 12 to 24 hours before new data comes in. So it's like you hurry up, you get it, and then after that, all right, well, what is the next stuff going to do? Well, I guess I'll find out tomorrow when I wake up.
What an interesting job.
It is. It is interesting. I will say there's a lot of things that I get to do that as a broadcaster that I know as a normal person you would not be able to. I've done stories. We used to do a segment called One Tank Trips when I was a weekend meteorologist, and basically it was like go to these little experiences that you could take, one tank of gas drive down to. So when we went to Biloxi, we got to do a behind the scenes look at the Rivage and the Cirque, what is it called? The Cirque du Soleil act that was going on at the time. We got to go to Gulf Shores another time, and I got to go behind the scenes of the Gulf Shores Zoo and hold like a baby kangaroo. And it's like, I know as a normal person, I would never get to do stuff like that. And it's just, there are so many cool little things that, it's just like, wow, because I'm a broadcaster, it's like, there was no way I would ever do this. And I think those are the moments I think they're the coolest to me. There was one time too, we got to go to the Honey Island swamps in Slidell and do an alligator tour.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that would be quite something.
was.
You see alligators?
Oh, we saw plenty. There was I think the biggest one in the swamp, they said it was like the alpha alligator. He was like 17 foot long.
Oh, wow.
And the captain of the boat would throw marshmallows to make him come closer to the boat so you could see them. And he swam up, and you could tell that he was the alpha alligator because he came up and he saw that marshmallow, and he went, oh, it was like the gentlest fight to get that marshmallow. And then all the younger ones were like fighting over the marshmallow, but he came up and he went, oh, that was it.
Wow. I don't think I would like that. No, that's like over 3 of me.
Yes.
Yeah, no. I wouldn't like that too much.
It was weird. I was like, okay, we're safe, but that thing is huge. Like what? And so funny was there was a group from New Jersey who visiting New Orleans, and they went and did it, and they're like, they leaned over the edge and they're like, oh my gosh, look how gentle he is. And the captain was like, get back in the boat.
Do not
lean over the boat to take a picture.
I am not liable for whatever happens,
he is
right?
still a large alligator. He is a wild animal. Just because he took the most simplest bite for that marshmallow does not mean he will do that for you.
He could eat you in one little bite.
I know.
Yeah, scary. Well, Patrick, you are so amazing, and thank you for your servant's heart and for all that you do and for keeping everyone in your community safe and for driving from Hattiesburg today to be with us. And so just thank you so much.
And thank you so much for inviting me up here. I really appreciate it.
And I'll see you on April 11th, and hopefully you'll get another one of those MAB
Hopefully,
awards.
yes, indeed. Hopefully. That's the goal.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.